The NFL trade deadline is coming up quickly on November 1st, and Cam Akers is most likely going to be traded by then. This is because of his poor play recently, as well as attitude within the locker room. But in order to understand how we got here, we have to go back to his rookie season. Cam Akers was the second running back picked in the 2020 NFL draft in the second round with the 52nd pick. And of course, he was drafted by the Rams. The Rams had high hopes for the 21-year-old out of Florida State who had very good college tape. It was said that he was a raw prospect, but he had the most potential out of this draft class. And for the first half of the 2020 NFL season, it showed that he was raw as he wasn't doing too hot. He didn't start for a while, and when he did, he wasn't getting too many carries and he was part of a split backfield. That was all until his game against the 49ers. In this game, he popped off. He had 9 carries for 84 yards and 1 touchdown, and it showed that he could be a very good running back. Well, this success led into the next game as well, and he got more carries with 21 carries, and he had 72 yards and 1 touchdown yet again. And he did even better in his third consecutive game against the Patriots, in which he had 29 carries for 171 yards and led the Rams to a victory. And at this point, people gave Cam Akers his due respect, and he was looked at as one of the better running backs in the league. Even though he played a limited amount of snaps in the regular season of 2020, he had 145 carries for 625 yards and 2 touchdowns. He really proved himself in the first game against the Seahawks, where he had 28 carries for 131 yards and 1 touchdown. To do this in your first playoff game as a rookie running back, people were very impressed. They ended up winning that game and then playing the Packers, where he again did extremely well with 18 carries, 90 yards, and another touchdown. The Rams ended up losing that game, but Cam Akers was looking like a top-tier running back in the league at this point. But then tragedy struck in the offseason. Cam Akers ended up tearing his Achilles, which pretty much ended his season. Or so we thought. You see, most times when you tear your Achilles, you're going to be out for 9 to 12 months. However, Cam Akers had a very speedy recovery and he was back in just 6 months. This was good to be back by the final game of the regular season, and the Rams made the playoffs. He had an okay playoff run, however he had 2 key fumbles in the Buccaneers game that almost led the Rams to lose. However, the Rams ended up winning the Super Bowl. He was basically splitting carries with Darrell Henderson this whole time, but that was understandable because he tore his Achilles. And that leads us to the lead up to this 2022 NFL season. People assumed that Cam Akers would have his best season yet and be the workhorse running back for the Rams. But in the first game against the Buffalo Bills, he ended up getting only 3 carries for 0 yards. This took a lot of people by surprise, as no one had an indication that he wouldn't be the lead workhorse back. And that led people to start asking the question, what was wrong with Cam Akers? He ended up playing in the next 4 games, having 151 yards and 1 touchdown, and then that leads us to this past week. It was announced that Cam Akers was going to be out against the Panthers. And all Sean McVay had to say about it was that Cam Akers was dealing with some personal stuff. And then just yesterday, it was announced that Cam Akers is asking for a trade. So now we have to ask the question, where did it go wrong? Cam Akers has had spurts of very good football play and then a lot of games where he's kind of just a dud. If he had a full season to show what he was worth, getting all of the workhorse carries, I believe he could be a workhorse running back in the NFL. However, he did tear his Achilles and no one really took that into consideration when thinking about these workhorse loads. I think that Sean McVay and the Rams wanted him to take things slow, and Cam Akers wanted to just get all of the carries that he could. And that led to disagreements between Cam Akers and the Rams, and Cam Akers most likely feels disrespected by this, so he wants a trade. So the problem is either his Achilles or his attitude in the locker room, or a combination of both. I don't see a way that Cam Akers doesn't get traded by the November 1st deadline in 2 weeks, but I hope the best for him and I hope the best for the Rams as well. Maybe the Rams could trade Cam Akers and some draft capital for Christian McCaffrey, who is also seeking a trade from the Panthers. Let me know what you think of this. Subscribe if you like the video.